Here we are, it's another day out in the shop. I was going to do a video about Christmas lights. I put up some outside lights, not around the house, but in the shrubs and the bushes down the driveway and in the front yard, and just kind of accent the yard a little bit. The little LEDs. I mean, it's beautiful. And the video I was going to make was going to be talking about Debbie and I being older people now, and how we decorate for Thanksgiving, we decorate for Christmas. And our philosophy is you're never too old to have a happy childhood. So we just play when it comes to the holidays and enjoy ourselves. And sometimes it's just the two of us. We did have some people come by last night and bring us a little bag of candy and a Christmas card. It's a guy I call Tractor Man. And I used to have a towing company, so I still have a rollback truck with a winch on it and stuff. That's the kind that the bed slides back, goes down like that. That's what I carry my equipment on. So, first time I met Tractor Man was when his wife called during the day. And I mean, she was really upset. And so she had heard that I used to be in the towing business and they needed a little help. Well, I told him, I'm not in that business anymore, so she says, but my husband just drove the tractor off a cliff. And I thought, okay, well, this is for me, because I didn't really do regular towing very much when I had the company. I did recovery work a lot. I had a little wrecker then, and I just loved going and flipping stuff right side up and getting it out of the woods and roping up and climbing down to hook a car up and dragging it up the hill. So I told her I'd come over and take a look. It was down there probably 75 feet, like that, or like that. It's an area where he'd been dumping stuff over this cliff, and which, you know, it builds out, but it's also soft. So he was going to dump some stuff, and the front of the cliff caved in, and he went over, he went down, he was not belted in. And it's like this tractor over here, you probably can't see it, but they have a ROP, it's a rollover protection bar, which if you roll one over, you should be belted in. And then the safest place to be when a tractor rolls over is inside the area of the rollover protection device. Well, he wasn't belted in. And so he jumped out as it was flipping over, and which can be really dangerous, as you can imagine. So I'm over there talking to him, and he says he thinks he'll just hook his truck up to it and pull it up the hill. Well, this is not a little tractor like mine. It's maybe the next size up. Weighs twice as much maybe as my little BX25D. So I'm thinking, you know, he's a Mormon guy, and I love teasing people who are Mormon, because I have one next door and they're moving in all over the place. You can't get away from them anymore. They're nice people, but you know, if you can get their money, you're really good at what you do, because they like spending inside their circle. So, and I didn't do this for money. I went over, I took my rollback truck, which is not really a recovery truck, And I pulled it up, flipped it over, pulled it up. And the reason I went over and did that, out of the goodness of my heart, which not much goodness inside this heart, but I had been on a job when I had my company, got a call from a guy who had somehow got his tractor down over a cliff. And he says, how much is it going to cost to get that out? And I said, I don't know. I'd have to look at it. And he says, well, can you give me a ballpark? I said, it could be $200, it could be $500, depending on how much climbing down a hill I got to do, how hard it is to get it up, where it is. And he says, okay, come on out, let's get this thing recovered. He was a younger guy. Now, around here, we have some wealthy people, Microsoft people, Google people. I don't know if this was one of those, but he had that hotshot attitude. So I get there, and he says, what do you think it'll cost? I said, this is probably about $275. And he says, I'm not going to pay you $275 to pull that out. And I went, well, I'm not new at this game. I don't want to argue with anybody. He can be a prick if he wants to be. He baited me to get me out. Then he says, so would you do it for $100 since you're already here? And I said, not a chance. He says, well, I have a friend, he has a CJ Jeep. They're kind of a little Jeep with a winch on the front. They don't weigh very much. And he says, we'll just get it out ourselves then. And I thought, this could be interesting to watch. So I said, well, you guys do that. I'm going to pull over here and just watch you do it because I like watching that kind of stuff. And so they hook it up and they get it flipped over, which doesn't take much. I mean, it's pretty easy to roll a tractor or a car over onto its wheels. What they didn't think about was this thing's on a hill like this, and it went down the hill because they like to go down these hills, right? The gravity, the weight, the rolling of the tires, all this stuff. They flip this up, and the guy in the CJ is yelling, screaming how proud he is of himself, and this tractor takes off down the hill. So, needless to say, it wasn't a good scene because it pulled the CJ and the guy that was in the CJ down this hill also. Guy broke his neck. Not bad. You can break your neck and still be at least not dead, So I'm over at this place at my house. We're at a different job now, where they called me. They wanted me to help them out, and I didn't want to do it. But when this Mormon guy started talking about, he just hook his truck up to it and pull it up. And his wife is there, and his kids are there, and his Mormon friend is there. That I just thought, I can't let this happen. So I pull him up, and the whole time he's having to listen to me because as I was starting to do my work, I had them do some of the climbing and hooking up and strapping around trees to secure this thing, so when it rolled over, it'd have a chain and a strap on it. And I double those up, one on each side, so that it won't get away from us and roll down the hill. And I start to work, and he says, why don't you do this? And I said, I've done these before. I know what I'm doing. Using your brain is what got you in this predicament. Using my brain will get us out. And I don't want to hear any more help I don't need any more help other than you guys doing what I tell you to do, because this is kind of a two-man job, and I figure I'm here, I'm one man. Between the two of you, that's one man, because you don't know what you're doing. You got this thing down there. So we get it up, and he has to listen to me the whole time, because I'm just talking to him about stuff that's gone on in my life. I wanted to keep talking and telling stories because I didn't want to hear him give me any more suggestions. So when we get it to the top and up on secure ground and stuff, and I told him, I said, you know, I didn't want to do this. I told him the story about the guy that broke his neck. And I said, but you know, your wife was here, your kids were here, and I've had experience in this kind of deal before where people got hurt. And I just, in my old age, I would have watched, like I did with the guy that got hurt, where he broke his neck, which after that happened, I was sitting in my wrecker and I got out, I looked over the hill and I told the people that were watching, I said, well, that was worth the price of admission, wasn't it? Got in my truck and drove home. That was that job. Now we're back at this one. So he's nice as can be. They're all very nice. But I had to kind of rattle him a little bit. I told him about the guy that broke his neck, and I said, you know, between all the people that were here when I showed up, I said, I think the only one that was using their brain was your wife, because she knew you were in trouble. You didn't know you were in trouble, and you could have been hurt pretty bad. So anyway, last night we get a knock on the door. I call this guy Tractor Guy. I can't remember anybody's names, so I always make up names for him. He's Tractor Guy. He and his wife and his kid, daughter that just cut her finger off this summer and just had COVID, was out in the truck, and she's learning to drive. She's 16, and so she was real happy. She could drive her parents over here to bring us this little Christmas goodie thing, right? And which I liked. I love candy, but I also thought it was pretty nice that they would do that, because we're not really friends, and I've kind of ragged on this guy a little bit, letting him know, you don't act so pompous. You should be very humbled, because your wife is the only one who had a brain that was working. So anyway, I've talked to him a couple times since then, and we get along well. And to have them show up in the Christmas spirit like that, and get to look at my Christmas lights that I have down the driveway, just made my day and my night. And I thought I'd just do a little video on it. The other part of this video is I've been making videos that kind of make fun of me and how I'm mediocre in a lot of things. I thought I'd switch it up a little bit. I was going to tell you how about every 5 months, I make this thing called counter coffee. It's one of the things I'm a little mediocre at, making coffee. And counter coffee is, that's my name for it. It's where you're making coffee and you get distracted just a little bit, and you don't put the pot back under the deal, and it makes the coffee, but it runs all over the counter, and you've got about a half hour cleanup. That's one of the things that I'm also pretty mediocre at. I'm not a wonderful cook. When I make a sandwich, we call them prison sandwiches. I made that up, the name, because like if it's a bologna sandwich, it's 2 pieces of bread, mustard, and a piece of bologna. If it's a meatloaf sandwich, it's 2 pieces of bread, meatloaf, and a little ketchup. You know, just simple, simple, simple. Maybe what you'd get in prison. When Debbie makes a sandwich for me, you take a bite of it, and it's got lettuce and tomato and all kinds of stuff, and it just drips. So they're good, and I'm not going to tell her that they're not, because she'll never make me another one, because I kind of piss her off anyway. So if she has an excuse to not do something for me, she might go in that direction. And I really need her because she's about the only woman I ever met that could put up with me and will take care of me as well as she does. Like I went for maybe 5 years of our marriage and never went in a grocery store. You know, I don't do shopping. I don't like shopping. I like buying. I can go in and buy a Kubota in about 10 minutes, but I can't spend 10 minutes in a grocery store or Costco without getting a really bad headache. So I thought in this tractor dissertation, in this Christmas light dissertation, in this coffee pot failure that I run into every once in a while, I would show you and explain to you something that I did that I was really good at. When I was coming out of my being a recluse stage, and I studied a lot of stuff, and a lot of poetry, a lot of writing, a lot of reading, a lot of music. I won't get into why I went reclusive, but I had to take myself out of society because I was angry. So after about 5 years, I decided, well, I'm going to come back into society. But what I want, because like when I used to write, I'd use humor, and I love poetry, and I love metaphor. I wanted a physical metaphor for me about living life non-fear-based. So what I did was I found where there was a fire walk going on, and I thought, walk and fire, that'll be my physical metaphor for not living life fear-based, for living life non-fear-based. So I walked the fire. Not a big deal. I mean, it wasn't even challenging. But then there were some people at this thing. We were out in a big field, big fire, you know, all raked out and stuff. And they picked up these pieces of rebar. This is rebar, 3/8 rebar. It doesn't bend really easy. And they took this stuff, and imagine that this piece of rebar is straight, right? Now, when they make this stuff, they shear the ends, so there's little sharp pieces. Can you see that? So what they did was they took a little piece of leather, just a little piece of leather that would go on that, or that would go up against that. And they would take this and put it to their neck right there. I'm making a video. Of course, Debbie had come in and laughed at me because she's heard all my stories about 100,000 times and she doesn't want to hear them anymore.
300,000.
300,000. So thank God she's gone. Okay, so you'd put, this is a straight piece. Take this little piece of leather, you put it right here, and you have another person at the other end of this straight piece of rebar, okay? No hands, just like that, and it's up against their neck. And then you get into a state of 100% intention, and you lunge forward. And you bend it like that. It's not heated up, it's just out of the field. And that was my physical metaphor for to think of when I became fearful of anything, which I don't really get fearful very easy. But I just thought that'd be interesting. There's a lot of wacko stuff out there, and I've studied it. I know about it. I don't know how that works, but it seems to work. I know that I studied energy transfer, and that works. I don't know how it works, but we all experience it. Be in an office with someone who's negative, and you'll understand. You get those negative vibes, even if they don't say anything. Anyway, so this is not what I was going to make a video about today, but it seems appropriate. Seems long enough. If I remembered to turn on this little speaker, this little microphone thing, and I had the camera in focus and all that. Otherwise, it goes from being a pretty good video to a mediocre video. So I'm going to finish this one up, and then I'm going to make one after a while about a tree that went over today in some friend's yard that's about a quarter mile away. They're not on the lake. They do have a place on the lake also, but they had a big tree go over, and I went over, and snoop that I am, took my movie camera and video camera and took some pictures. We call them, when I first got to know them, we thought they were the Green Acres people. They're city people who moved out to the country, but they're pretty good country people now. They were good people then, but country's good. Okay,